Greetings, Warlord.
That time of year is approaching, which can only mean the release of the much anticipated update for the Protectors. As always, thank you for your feedback and for your support. As has been relayed on our Discord channel over the past year, we have heard your feedback and incorporated it into the direction of the game going forward. 0.9 was a colossal patch with numerous changes to core mechanics. However, it was too much of a departure from Warlords Battlecry's core values. Our goal is to realise the potential of the series in as faithful a manner as possible and appeal to the majority of fans. We will do our very best to meet those standards. We hope you'll find 0.9.2 is a step in the right direction and a good sign of things to come. This patch's primary focus is the reintroduction of damage types and armour, as well as a large number of quality of life updates to improve your experience with the game. This includes, but isn't limited to, unit stat revisions, hero and item updates and features, a new building interface, a modular Warlords Battlecry 1 soundtrack update, and many more fixes and quality of life updates. With that out of the way, let's delve into 0.9.2. The first major focus of the patch is the reintroduction of damage types and armour. In the prior version of the game, damage types were replaced with unit types as the primary tactical system. This meant that units typically had little armour and hence damage types had little relevance. This came with some problems. Units with type bonuses against other units had too great an advantage, and since there was little armour as well, this meant that higher tier units suffered. Also, it could be visually difficult to tell what a unit's type actually was without significant changes to the unit's appearance or creating entirely new units, which we don't currently have the means to do. This led to units like Wraiths and Slimes becoming Spearman-type units which were effective against cavalry. Consequently, regardless of how unit types may be tuned, it's a tactical system the game wasn't designed for. As a result of this, and to stay closer to the roots of Warlords Battlecry, we have reintroduced armour as the primary tactical system, but not in the same way as any prior version. In 0.9.2, units have an armour percentage versus each damage type, and any armour bonuses are additional percentages applied on top, so you always know what armour your units have, and exactly how much armour they will receive from buffs. Due to every unit now having an armour value against each damage type, they fare precisely how a player would expect. For example, the swordsman will have a lot of piercing and slashing armour, but less fire or cold armour and negative electrical armour. This makes a unit's identification easier, whilst also maintaining the variety we expect from the game series. That's not all, as we have also made some changes to deal damage. Previously, deal damage would split the damage value 50-50 between two damage types. Now instead, it deals damage based on which damage type is most effective against the target. For example, an archer with flaming arrows and 10 damage used to deal 5 piercing and 5 fire damage, whereas now they would deal 10 piercing if the enemy is weakest against piercing, or 10 fire if the enemy is weakest against fire. This change means that the flaming arrows research is no longer a detriment if the enemy is resistant to fire, and it provides races with much needed damage types at different stages of the game. Additionally, new research is available at each race's tower, which gives them access to dual damage types. Each research ensures that every race always has an effective defense against their opponent. Along with the reintroduction of armor, unit stats and costs have received major modifications across the board. Elite units and titans in particular are much more capable, and many even come with reduced costs as well. This is down to a fix in the way costs are calculated, which means the cost for units and some buildings are much fairer than they used to be. Heroes and items have received many adjustments and new additions. The first major change relates to weapon mechanics. Originally, weapons only provided a fixed damage bonus, while the hero had damage that scaled with their stats and skills. Instead of hero damage, weapons now scale with stats and skills, making it much easier to compare the amount of damage you can deal between weapons. In addition, the archery, magery and throwing perks have been removed, and any hero can now equip any weapon of their choosing, as long as they have the stat requirement. These changes help promote hero variety and expand the number of viable builds. Hero stats and skills follow the same trend, and have seen many new updates and fixes. damage skills such as Mighty Blow and Marksmanship are now all percentage based, meaning their effect applies to the damage of the weapon. Stats, unit XP skills and discount skills have also been adjusted and are now much more fair. Some additional skills make their debut as well, such as Spellslinger, Authority and Rune Crafting, helping to flesh out and standardize previously unseen mechanics. Respeccing your heroes has never been easier with the new Hero Respec button located within the Hero Info panel. Heroes can now dual-wield weapons, allowing them to make use of different combinations of damage types. This gives heroes a 10% damage boost over a single weapon, and it utilizes the new dual damage mechanic mentioned earlier in the video. Item stash pages and retinue slots are no longer tied to charisma, and instead cost crowns to unlock. This cost increases depending on the number of item stash pages or retinue slots already unlocked. Now any hero can store vast collections of treasure and bring a mighty entourage into battle. Speaking of items, their variety has been expanded even further with the advent of two-handed weapons. These fearsome items are considerably more potent than single-handed weapons and can be upgraded twice as much. All weapons which are more suitable as two-handed weapons have been updated into them, giving them the feel they always should have had. Aiding in this vision are the new item sprites, redrawn in the pen and ink art style of the original Warlords Battlecry 3 items. Likewise, many other item sprites have been improved and now uphold the visual quality we expect. Item upgrades have also been changed. Instead of upgrading items to artifact level, all items may now each be upgraded 3 times. Items which have been maxed out may still be renamed as before, and the original item type as well as the upgrade level are now all displayed in the item's title bar. As a result, higher rarity items are more desirable than more common ones, hence there's always a reason to find them. In addition, due to the new display, they are much easier to identify. One of the values upheld by the Protectors is its dedication to quality of life updates. Coming in this version is the new building production wheel. Accessing the building window and each menu button is easier and more centralized using a QWERTY setup. What's more, the new wheel frees up space so that garrisons and the current conversion status can easily be seen. A new soundtrack is available in the coming patch version. Based on Warlords Battlecry 1, the new soundtrack features modular tracks and stingers, much like the first entry of the series. In addition, the original Warlords Battlecry 1 OST has been updated with the new modularity system, and a new volume slider has been added to the stingers in both these soundtracks. Special thanks to Bones Malone for the new mix. In this patch are numerous visual, audio and gameplay bug fixes, ensuring the most stable version of the game yet. AI has also seen many improvements, utilizing abilities, items and garrisons better. Unit AI is smarter. When a unit loses sight of its target, it will move to the target's last known location, only returning to its prior position if the target could not be rediscovered. Casters now move within range of the target before casting the spell instead of immediately casting it in the target's direction. Buildings also receive some quality of life improvements besides the building wheel. A building's conversion box is now coloured to show who has converted it the most, so you can see who it will be given to once conversion is complete. What's more, any converter in Fog of War becomes revealed to the player whose units or buildings are being converted. Mirrorwood trees and Orbs of Wonder now display their radii when they or other buildings are being placed, making it easy to see their area of influence. Garrisons now support all units except siege units, flyers and titans, allowing them safe refuge and regeneration. In addition, garrisons units now use their own attacks from towers instead of boosting the tower, resulting in a greater variety of defensive strategies. Speaking of towers, they now contest conversion. No longer will you lock down a mine only for it to be safely converted from afar. The Merchant's Victory condition has been renamed to Prospectors, and the winning player is now whoever has mined the most resources, rather than whoever has the most income. This update allows non-merchant heroes to compete against merchants in this game type, making it more fair for everyone. Income is also no longer capped at plus 30, allowing more resource-minded heroes and high-income maps to take proper advantage of all the extra spoils. Diplomacy is a new feature in the Warlords Battlecry 2 campaign. Make mutually beneficial deals with friends, demand tribute from the weak, and crush all opposition in new ways. Also, various extra content has been added to the game, including but not limited to the Wolf Den building for Lindenloth Barbarians and an Acid Affliction used by certain units and spells. Tieramar Dark Elves make use of a unique army limit display which glows yellow when at or below 33% of the total, making it easy to determine when the faction's researches and abilities activate. That's the highlights of this patch covered. The following section is dedicated to the review of 0.9 and the direction of the game going forward. The previous patch was both massive and experimental. Some ideas worked, some didn't, and others could use improvement. Among these ideas are unit types, resources and abilities, the base radius, and upkeep. Starting with the unit type system, this was implemented to ensure that races could fight fairly against any others at any stage of the game. One of the well-known issues with Warlords Battlecry was the uneven race matchups. Minotaurs or Dark Dwarves versus Undead or Swarm are some of the most infamous ones, since the former races have crushing damage early and the latter ones have crushing vulnerability most of the game. By changing the primary tactical system from damage types to unit types, races that were originally poorly matched became more able to hold their own. However, it came with some problems. The mechanic was extreme enough that higher tier units became less relevant due to type weaknesses. It was also unintuitive and led to wraiths and slimes becoming spearmen to make up for the lack of anti-cavalry units. Since damage types are the core tactical component of Warlords Battlecry, diminishing them resulted in the game feeling like too much of a departure. Overall, the game wasn't really designed for the unit type system, hence it has been reverted in this patch. Resources, their usage and their identity are tied in part with the global application of unit abilities. The new system was intended to fix certain issues which were prevalent in past versions, and give each kind of resource a specific role. Since costs are homogenized across races and mines always produce some gold unit regardless of what kind of resources they have access to, meaning they'll always have something to use against their opponent and don't need to produce ineffective units. Since each resource type has a specific role, and the cost scheme is universally true across all races, it's easier for newer players to grasp and to make effective strategic decisions against their opponent. Crystal is related to research and unit abilities, ensuring there's a use for the resource throughout the game. A resource cost for abilities means that there is no need to incorporate ability costs into the cost of a unit, so a unit can be produced for its body rather than its abilities. The more crystal a player has, the more abilities they can activate. Unfortunately, the resource system does come with some problems. Due to the homogenization of resource costs, races use resources the same way, and some costs don't make thematic sense. Unit ability costs act as a secondary restriction for players to consider, and ability-dependent campaign missions unintentionally became more difficult due to the lack of crystal. The resource system is a point of frequent discussion, and its direction is being well considered to ensure that any change would be beneficial. Similarly with resources, the base radius is also a salient point of discussion. The purpose of this mechanic is to disincentivize permanent map dominance through the use of forward bases, prevent tower rushing enemy bases, and function as a racial mechanic for sides like barbarians, who can move their buildings anywhere without restriction. Strategically, the dominance of forward bases is down to the way resources are collected. As spines have a limit to how much they can be upgraded or filled, they provide a limited amount of income. Because of this, a player's income is proportional to the amount of map control they have. Forward bases lock down large proportions of the map by massively decreasing the amount of time required to defend it and by making areas inaccessible. In addition, they are easy to invest in and construct when the opponent is on the back foot. For these reasons, forward bases act as a reliable anti-comeback strategy which is often detrimental to gameplay. Races also benefit from the base radius mechanic. With the distinction of defense buildings, certain sides are able to build unique buildings such as voids or embassies anywhere without restriction. Barbarians, demons, and some factions can even relocate their buildings in different ways, which helps to make each side feel more distinct and special. It's appreciated that the base radius isn't to everyone's liking, and would benefit from being easy to interpret and understand. Upkeep's building radius is only shown on placement, and it's difficult to determine how much extra cost a base building is expected to be outside a player's starting location. In order to make the best version of the mechanic possible, the direction of the base radius mechanic is being carefully contemplated. For those who dislike it, the mechanic can be turned off in the skirmish or campaign options menu. Upkeep, like the base radius, is a mechanic which is intended to increase the likelihood of comebacks. As mentioned beforehand, income is proportional to map control, which is typically a player's victory status. Every second, a player with more income will keep gaining more of a lead over their opponent. With Upkeep, instead of gaining more of a lead, the winning player is more capable of supporting a larger army. This is because the amount of upkeep a player has is related to the amount of units they control, and since the winning player has more income, they can support a larger army. Upkeep isn't intended to be an absolute solution. Rather, the mechanic increases the chance for comebacks. Unfortunately, the mechanic also presents some issues. As upkeep increases based on unit quantity, and as units typically aren't worth keeping, players are incentivized to use their units as fast as possible. Also, upkeep causes some campaign missions to function incorrectly due to the lack of resources. In order to improve the mechanic, there are plans to change how it works. Instead of paying upkeep over time, unit costs could scale with the number of units the player already has, thereby shifting the extra cost from standing armies to the initial production. Like other mechanics, upkeep is under consideration, and for those who dislike it, the mechanic can be turned off in the skirmish or campaign options menu. Among the most critical of 0.9's feedback relates to campaigns. The patch has seen many recent changes, resulting in the original campaigns being left behind with new problems, as highlighted by other parts of this video. In 0.9.2, original campaigns have been improved with some updates which help address ability costs, upkeep, and their overall difficulty. In addition, a new Fey chapter makes its debut. In future, more focus will be given to campaigns. Each mission will be comprehensively analysed and brought up to standard, with all the new features incorporated. Look forward to seeing these improvements in a coming patch. With that, the highlights of 0.9.2 have been covered, and the direction of the game has been detailed. It's truly heartwarming to see so much love for the game and the Warlords franchise. We're taken aback by the sheer passion and the comprehensive feedback that you, the fans, have provided. Thanks for staying with us, and for your support over the years. As always, our goal is to appeal to the majority of fans and make the best entry into the Warlords Battlecry series we can. Your feedback has given us a lot to discuss and much to think about. Any changes to core systems are all-encompassing, and so they will be carefully considered and released in a series of small steps to ensure that they are beneficial overall. We hope that 0.9.2 is one such step in the right direction and an example of things to come in the future. Until next time, thanks for watching.
Farewell, Warlord. We shall meet again.